CBS News senior political analyst and 60 Minutes correspondent John Dickerson joins us with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan. Good morning, folks. John, let me start with you. The debate was more civil, it was more substantive, but did it move the needle for either candidate, do you think?
I don't think so, Anthony. Usually what political scientists will tell you is that the needle only moves when somebody has a big gaffe, like the president's behavior in the first debate. The polls showed us people didn't like him constantly interrupting. In this case, both sides can claim something for their side, but in a field where Joe Biden is leading nationally and in the battleground states, and where the president is having trouble with the coalition that elected him in 2016, a debate where there's not any big win for him or a big loss for Joe Biden is not what the president needs with the election a little more than a week away. Margaret, our CBS poll shows more people trust Biden to handle the coronavirus than President Trump, and it is the biggest issue. So did President Trump pick up any ground or prove his case, do you think, in the debate last night?
Well, Anthony, there are about 76,000 new infections yesterday alone, 41,000 Americans hospitalized. It's according to the COVID-19 tracking project. So the power of positive thinking isn't going to change those facts. When the president says the country's rounding the corner, at best you can say, well, maybe he's talking about an improved chance of survival if you get sick. But as Joe Biden has consistently argued, he wants this to be the measuring stick for the Trump presidency, arguing that the president failed to keep Americans safe, which is the first order of business for any American president. President Trump continues to repeat this mantra that basically it could have been worse. So Joe Biden, I think he had a phrase last night that we're entering a very dark winter. He painted a picture of America entering a scary phase, reminding the public that they are still very much at risk, and I think really tried to undercut the president's case that it's somehow behind us.
John, one of the president's most prominent lines of attack last night was to try to paint Joe Biden as corrupt. He again brought up unverified accusations about Hunter Biden's financial dealings. How prominent an issue do you think this is for voters? How much do you think it matters? I don't think it matters a great deal with voters, and also it's obviously risky for the president, who has, if you use the standard he is using with the Biden family, to look at his own conflicts between his personal business dealings and also the reporting, again, using the standard he uses for the Biden family, of debts he still owes to foreign entities. You would think this would be ground he would stay off of, but he's not trying to win a virtue contest here. He's basically trying to strip down Joe Biden's view, or people's views about Joe Biden more broadly. The problem, as Margaret pointed out, is that Joe Biden has an ally in the news cycle, which is if President Trump tries to shift the turf under the Biden family for the purposes of muddying Joe Biden, the news cycle keeps returning to the central piece of this campaign, which is coronavirus and the president's response to it, and the country has a very negative view of that. And as these numbers continue, it keeps voters focused on that very bad issue for the president.
One moment that stood out to me, guys, was when the president said, and it was in Nicole's piece, that he was the least racist person in the room. Normally a comment like that is followed by, you know, my cousin's married to a black guy and I've got several black friends. So what did you all make of that moment?
Well, clearly the polls have shown that the country has disapproved of the president's response to the protests in America in the wake of George Floyd's death and a variety of other cases. And so the president, it's not just the statement on its own, on its face, has some significant challenges, including that the president was the chief birther for 5 years, challenging Barack Obama's legitimacy to be president. So he has his own personal issues with that, and the Central Park Five and so forth. But he also has real-time challenges with voters who think he had an insufficient response to what they think is a valid set of questions about equality and equity in America.
Margaret, officials were warning.
And I think, Gail.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I think, Gail, one of the things that is troubling to some is that label itself of racist. You consistently hear when you have polling done or reporters go out to white working class America and say, hey, you voted for Barack Obama. Why did you abandon Democrats and vote for Donald Trump this time? You often hear that phrase of, well, I don't like being told that the way I'm living is wrong, and this connection somehow back to race. And as Condoleezza Rice has said, that term alone shuts down conversation. President Trump continues to use that phrase, least racist person, as if it is a way to somehow connect with people who feel that they are being marginalized, rather than recognizing the facts, as Joe Biden tried to lay out in his argument, that there is institutional, systematic racism within the United States. He made it more about sort of defending a way of life or something, or saying, don't call me a bad person, versus recognizing where the country is in and of itself. It's not a winning argument for the president, but it's something he constantly comes back to as a way somehow to connect to his base. It means something different to him than the facts that Joe Biden laid out.
All right. Margaret Brennan, John Dickerson, thank you both. Sunday on Face the Nation, Margaret will interview Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. And Sunday night, hear interviews with both presidential candidates and their running mates on 60 Minutes.